Welcome to the Ages of Rock podcast with your hosts Bill Algie, Dennis Talbot, and Alan Tate. We are three guys who have one thing in common, a love of rock and roll. Our goal is to talk about all things rock. We hope you find this show intriguing, funny, and occasionally highly opinionated. Enjoy!
Still love it loud? So do we. Rockin' Pod returns to Nashville on Saturday, August 25th. Over 25 rock podcasts from all over North America, recording on-site. Vinyl and memorabilia dealers selling the best in rock merchandise. And awesome rock musicians and personalities participating in signing sessions and on-stage panel discussions throughout the day. Special guests include current and former members of Korn, Kiss, Angel, Winger, Loudness, Accept, Bang Tango, Kick Tracy, as well as producers that have worked with Slayer, Ozzy, Alice Cooper, Sevendust, and many more. More guests being added weekly. Don't miss your chance to be part of an awesome celebration of all things rock. Rockin' Pod takes place at the legendary Nashville Palace, August 25th, 2018. More details available at rockinpod.com. That's ROCKNPOD.com. The Nashville Rockin' Pod Expo. Brought to you by Blind Tiger Record Club, School of Rock Nashville, and School of Rock Franklin, a DBG Productions event.
Hello, folks. This
Hello,
is episode 126.
126.
You're watching us again. And I'm glad to see you all back. He's repeating everything I say.
You can see them?
I can see them. Well, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're just listening to us on either Spotify or iTunes or just,
20 seconds in and we already got Dumber Than Dumb.
Well, I've been talking the whole time though. No,
Exactly.
Anyway, tonight though we have a special guest or a guest on. It's Mr. Lizzy Borden, and we're glad to have him on. One thing I did go back this week and I watched the decline of Western civilization, the Metal Years. Part 2, or it's got a name that
Whatever the hell the name of that documentary is.
So anyway,
it's got a name much longer than your memory.
It does, and I've actually seen part 1 and there's actually a part 3. But anyway, I went back and watched it actually last night. I got it on YouTube and watched it, and was just kind of amazed how I hadn't seen it in a few years. And when we first watched it back when it came out, back in the late 80s, it was like 88, 89 when it came out. It was like, oh man, this is so cool. And it's like a few years later, man, this is
that explains why I missed it, because that's when I was first in the service and overseas.
Right.
So miss out a lot when you leave the States.
Thank you for your service, sir.
There you go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One thing, okay, I just made a few notes. I'm going to just read through here real quick. I mean, basically, if you haven't seen it, is basically they had interviewed some headbanger people that go see these bands. Then they interviewed some of the bands that were on the strip at that time, which ends up being, and we'll get that in the interview, that was basically about the time when hair metal was about to hit the grunge, the grunge wall. So a lot of the bigger bands had already been, picked out of that group, and there were other ones that were coming up trying to continue on the fame. They did have Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley in this video or in this documentary. Gene was dressed in leather, standing around in a lingerie store, and Paul was laying in a bed with
lingerie on.
No, he was actually wearing a pair of because I was looking, it was like a pair of spandex pants that were like multicolored, kind of their, I don't know, whatever it was like. Was that during like Crazy Nights or probably one of those?
Well, if it was 88 or 89, that was Crazy Nights and Smash and Thrash's era.
But he's laying in the bed. He's got 5 other playmates laying in bed with him the whole time, and they're asking these questions, and he's saying this. It's the cheesiest stuff ever. I mean, it's just at the time it was like, oh my god, they're so cool. It's like now it's like, man, it's just so weird.
What did he say? Anyway, he was caroling?
No, he didn't. But it kind of reminded me of that DVD. It was that in that kind of vein. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of really very sexist and very stupid. then they had Poison on there. They were talking, and Brett Michaels made a comment. He says, she goes, somebody asking him a question. He goes, oh, you want to know that? 16 inches between us all. I'm like going, it's not very smart to say that. That's an average of 4. Either one of you just got shortened and the other one's longer. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, it was like, and everything is so sexual innuendo in this thing. It was just so stupid.
Innuendo.
Innuendo. Did I say that wrong? So
no,
anyway,
I was just enunciating because I like that word. It's almost as awesome as moist.
I don't even know what I meant when I wrote this down here. LB first.
I like the word aluminum.
Gymnasium.
There you go.
All right, but anyway, they had Poison was one of the bands that they did talk to. Of the bigger people, they had Ozzy was on there, and he was making breakfast. And they come to find out later on that this was all kind of a stagey thing. None of this wasn't done in people's houses. This wasn't done. This was done basically on a shoestring. But they did talk to Ozzy, and it was kind of interesting. Alice Cooper was on there. And, Alice was, of course, always comes off very intelligent, very well-spoken, so his parts weren't bad. Like I said, they had Poison. Faster Pussycat was one of the other bands that they actually showed a couple songs from and talked to them. They had, and then, of course, Ricky Rocket, which was, he owned the Cat House, right? Did I get that right? I think that's what I wrote down. Anyway, they talked to him. He's really cheesy. There was a band called London that they played a couple songs from. Those guys, actually, I looked at, they were talking about it, and I actually looked them up. There was a lot of people who went through that band at the very beginning. Nikki Sixx, Blackie Lawless, Fred.
Nikki Sixx was in that band. And he died a couple of times. Did you know that?
Yeah.
But if you ever see him on Twitter, he should probably just fall off the planet.
But there was, we're never going to get him on here,
No, don't care.
No. But anyway, the band was interesting. I mean, and they're still to this day trying to get things going. I mean, it's kind of funny. There's been 17 or 19 members of that band at one time or another. The other band I thought was interesting was this band called Odin, and they were at Gazzari's, which was a Bill Gazzari, I guess, was the owner of this thing. He's this old, decrepit dude, and he's like, I like girls when I was 18-year-olds when I was 18, and I like 18-year-olds now too. And he's got these fucking girls standing around. I'm like, it's like, dude, you're just a creeper. I mean, it's just, it's like super creepy. Unfortunately, I do know a couple of bar owners like that, so it continues to this day. But anyway, he was promoting this band. They were one of the places that played Van Halen a lot in the beginning, and he kind of credits himself for finding David Lee Roth or whatever. I don't know. He's full of shit probably, but he was promoting this band called Odin, which was this guy he was a terrible singer. He had these assless chaps that he wore on stage, and all of his guys in the band kept having to look at his butt all the time because he rolls around on the floor and does all this crazy stuff. So, the band was.
I was just going to ask, at what point was Lizzy Borden in the movie?
Actually, there you go. That's where that came in. I said LB first. It was Lizzy Borden was first. I was trying to figure out why I was getting to that point. They were actually first, and he talks about that later on, that they were one of the main bands of this thing until they got Poison and all these other people in there. So yeah, Lizzy was in there early. They were actually the first band that was promoted. They played Born to Be Wild, and there was something else I believe that they played. And then they did interview some of the band, and they interviewed him also. But then Odin, like I said, this band Odin was funny. I started reading about, and they were in this hot tub supposedly at their house or hotel or whatever, drinking beers, and he was like going, if I don't make it, I'm just gonna kill myself and shit like this.
Was that the one that was floating around in the swimming pool?
No, that was
actually, that was Christopher
Holmes.
Chris Holmes. Yeah, Chris Holmes.
And his mom was there, and he's like drinking vodka, like on. Which they said, I read the thing with Penelope, she said it was just water. I mean, there was no way anybody could even live drinking that much vodka that he did that night on that camera. But Anyway, getting back to this Odin thing. So the band broke up actually before the movie actually came out. They were like, "We're gonna make it. We're gonna be the big thing," and blah blah blah. The one guitar player actually had started playing with Armored Saint whenever they went to the premiere of this movie, and he said the guy even they said he kind of just sit there and went kind of down in his chair because he it's like watching himself when they're going, "This band's gonna be the great." Oh, I'm with the Armored Saint now, which I thought was pretty funny. And then they had a real long kind of thing with Dave Mustaine and Megadeth also. So that was pretty well it. So, but
I'm more out. I don't know about you. I'm just exhausted.
I asked you guys to watch it. You didn't have time to watch it, so I was just gonna. It was actually harder to watch. I missed a lot of it because I got distracted on my phone.
I don't think you did.
I started watching like YouTube videos.
It sounded like we all just watched the movie with you.
I think you did a great job of viewing this
about
movie.
5.5 minutes shorter than the movie, so you.
So anyway, I think Bill has some information to give us about the new Lizzy Borden album.
More about Lizzy Borden, which is my LB first note.
Good grief! All right, so the Lizzy Borden record came out this is coming out on Thursday, June 28th, and the Lizzy Borden record came out on June 22nd.
There you go.
So in that week, here's some Billboard results for you about the new album called from Lizzy Borden called My Midnight Things. He did everything on this record, so he did it, and it's really good. Actually, we've heard it; it's a really good record. So pick it up. On Billboard charts, number 11, top new artist albums. Number 17, current hard rock music albums. Number 43, top new artist albums consumption. Number 46, independent current albums, and number 148, top 200 current albums. And in Canada,
Canada, I like Canada better.
Yeah. Number 84 in the top hard music charts. So here you go, our interview with Lizzy Borden. So Lizzy, let's talk about you guys have been around since 1983. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah,
that's when we officially started April of '83, but we actually started in early '82, but we couldn't get it together, and we went our separate ways for a little while, and then we got back together, and then we officially started playing in April of '83.
Cool. So was you that was out in LA, is that correct?
Yep, Hollywood.
Yep. All in the middle of all that mess, huh?
It was the beginning of it. It was we started at the Troubadour, which pretty much all of us started there, and it was a supper club. They had tables and chairs, and people would be eating while you're putting on this big bloody crazy show, and it was a shock to the system for sure at that time. But it was one of those things that the scene hadn't started yet, so it was just bubbling.
That's pretty cool. I didn't realize that it was like that, but I was at the Rainbow. I was in LA last summer, and I was at the Rainbow, and I guess you can eat there too. I didn't realize that. Were all the clubs like that? The Whiskey wasn't like that, I guess, but
no, the Whiskey was a rock club, but the Troubadour was the first club to embrace this kind of music because the Whiskey was still holding over from the 70s. And, so they really didn't embrace it. So the Troubadour just opened the doors. They started seeing, we were getting the high school kids right from the high school. They would go to Hollywood, and come to the shows. So it was a flood of people. And so they embraced that right away. And it didn't take long before they removed the tables and chairs. But I mean, that's where Elton John started and all these folk singers. It was made for folk singers, that club. And then all of a sudden it became this mosh pit place. And so it transformed very, very early on.
Cool. I didn't know that. That's some great history. We had quite a few guests. Nobody's talked about that. That's pretty cool. Very interesting.
Yeah, that's where it all started.
Cool. So do you guys still have all the original members, or have you guys traded people off and on throughout the years?
Yeah, I mean, I've had so many different lineups. We had a kind of a lineup together at the very beginning for about 2 years, but then I've had different lineups every time for the last 35 years.
Cool.
Because you've had what, two
you know,
times that you've actually had kind of a hiatus, didn't you? Had about two times where you've kind of dropped out for a little bit and then reformed
yeah,
again.
during the grunge movement, I took off about 4 years, and just I had another band that we just played around Hollywood called Diamond Dogs, and it was just a lot of fun.
Oh.
And then after my guitar player passed away, Alex Nelson, we started another band called Starwood and took another couple of years off doing that. And we played a few shows and went to Japan and everything with that band, made an album. But those are the two little spaces where I took a break. And then, but yeah, I mean, out of 35 years, had so many different lineups over the years, and I'm actually creating a whole new show with a new lineup now. So,
cool. So have you find yourself? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alan.
I was just going to say, you've got some new material out. Would you like to talk about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a new album called My Midnight Things, and it's first album in 11 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I just after I did the last couple of albums, they were like it was the end of it was a crash of the music industry. So it was just too difficult to live with those 80s record deals. We were trying to do it the way that model was set up, and it just didn't work anymore. You'd go through all this hassle making these records, and you put them out there, and they would just fall flat because there was no system to actually work them. And so I just decided, well, you know what? I'm touring all over the world, so I'm just going to put all my focus in that. And we have, our audience got really young all around the world, so it was like brand new. We were getting the same reaction that we got in 1987. So it was just really fun to do. And so I just decided I resigned myself to knowing that I'm not going to make another record. But then Brian Slagle from Metal Blade, contacted me and told me they created a whole new system, and Metal Blade Records is bigger than they ever were right now. And the new system is formatted for this way of doing business, so that the old record deals and the old way we used to do it, no one's doing it that way anymore. So this is how they found out how to do it. So it's a whole different ballgame. So now, and I miss being a recording artist. Really, so that was because that was like half of what I do. And so making this record was amazing.
So how does the recording process today differ for you from it when you first started recording in the early 80s?
Well, just technology alone, we're able to do this anywhere we want. I mean, I recorded this album in 3 different places, so it was just, awesome to be able to do that. Back then I had all the time in the world to record. I wasn't under a time constriction, that was just, I was able to do, take as long as I wanted. And back then you didn't have that. We would spend so much time on the music recording an album. I'd end up having to sing the whole album in 2 days. I went through that for quite a few records until I figured out, okay, I got to change this. But with technology, it's so different. Now I have full control, and it's a much better way of doing things.
So it's kind of a do it yourself thing now, instead of letting the record companies dictate what you do. Now you do it on your own terms.
Yeah, I mean, I had my own, I recorded this in my own recording studio in North Hollywood, and so yeah. But back then you had so many things, hoops you had to jump through, and then when it was done, whether you were done with the record or not. And there's so many, there's the first few records that I put out were basically unfinished because I didn't have, we ran out of time. And we didn't have any time management control back then. So you just, and when it's done, it's done whether you like it or not. And now I don't do that. Now I have full control.
So do you have a producer on this record, or are you self-producing?
I produced it with Joey Scott, drummer. Okay. And we did the last couple of records, so we have a great working relationship. All the stuff he's really good at, I'm not, and all the stuff I'm really good at, he's not. So it works out perfectly.
That usually makes for a pretty good team.
So with you mentioned that you're seeing a whole new young audience that are coming to see you now, kind of like you said, almost a rebirth from the 80s originally. Where is that coming from? Is that from just constant touring? Do you see, or is it like more in the European and countries that's happening, or is this happening worldwide? And then where is it coming from? I mean, because we don't have MTV anymore, we don't have, you know, radio stations playing anything new anymore. Is it more from the internet self promotion type situations, or just being out there on the road constant?
It was actually a shock to me, really, because we had been touring Europe and all around the world, and the audience was, your typical '80s audience had grown up with you, and all of a sudden, the last couple tours, it started getting younger and younger and younger, and they were reacting to all the hit songs that I had written, and instead of the really heavy stuff, they were reacting to the other stuff, and I'm like. So I really don't know. My guess is the internet and the decline of the Western civilization movie that I was in,
Right.
and a combination of everything, and they're discovering it. But yeah, it's everywhere except for North America. We haven't really played that much in North America. But the last tour we played South America, we played South Korea and Japan and of course all across Europe. We ended the tour in Russia, and it was the same audience every night in every country, and it was just one of those things where I have no idea. It just happened, and
Right.
so that actually helped me make this record. It helped me. It pointed me in the right direction of my audience now.
Interesting. That was going to actually want to be one of my last questions, but now since you brought it up, the decline of Western civilization, that documentary has become a cult classic. And at the time when you guys were involved with that project with Penelope, did you realize that it was going to become such a hit classic with everybody and become almost a time capsule for the '80s, Hollywood strip at that time?
No. I didn't. I wasn't even looking at that movie for anything. But when we started making it, me and Penelope got on really well, and actually, she shot more of Lizzy Borden than she did of any other band. But she ended up having cut a lot of it out because she ended up getting Joe Perry and Steven Tyler and all these huge, icons. So something had to go. So it was, But we were actually a bigger feature in the movie than originally, just because we got on so well. Because I worked on it she shot us on the day, and she shot us backstage, and then I came into their sound booth and did a lot of voiceovers and different things for the movie. But I had no idea it was going to be that way, and even the first perception of it, it was a different movie than I thought we were making. I thought we were making more of a celebration, like kind of a crazy, Hollywood celebration. But she kind of took it in a different direction. And I don't even think she knew that she was going to do that. But she started interviewing people, and then she ended up finding a different direction for it. But all the kids in Europe, they love that movie, and they look at it like it's a celebration. And so I think, it's taken on a new life of its own after all these years.
Right, and it stays current. I mean, I find myself, if I see it on, I'll sit and watch it. I even own it. I just have to find it. But they'll rerun it on some of the stuff sometimes on Netflix, and I'll find myself sitting down and watching it again. And it's just a cool way to remember how that was back at that point.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's such a strange time when you look back, but when we were living it. It wasn't that strange. It was very normal, and with the stuff that we were doing and the way we looked and all of that, it was, it seemed very natural. But you look back and go, wow, that was completely crazy. But for me, it was all about characters. So, when I look back and see the look of the different characters that I had for each album, that's the way I look at it. I go, that's the character that, and he had a backstory, he had all this stuff. But most people just look at themselves and go, wow, I looked really crazy back then.
So, from that perspective, then who were your influences? So that character idea came somewhere. Where did it come from?
Well, probably the first show that I ever saw, which was Kiss. And, Gene and Paul were so in character and so possessed by that. And I just was blown away. And then, I discovered Alice Cooper, same thing. David Bowie, same thing. Fee Waybill from the Tubes, he created all these different characters, and he was totally playing these characters on stage. And that made me interested in doing that. So, all my characters have names, and they have, backstories and all of that for each album. So, I have to find a look for each one of them and why they look the way they look, and so it just made it so interesting to me to be able to do it that way. But yeah, it was Kiss that really, just took it home for me and changed my way of thinking.
It's interesting. Yeah, I know you can't see us, but I'm sitting in my Kiss room where we do this interview.
Oh, that's
with a
cool.
big logo behind me. But the three of us, that's our commonality, is Kiss, which is just very interesting. But as many interviews as have done, it seems like that seems to be a big influence on everybody. It's just very interesting that almost every one of our interviews end up coming back to Kiss somehow. It's just really very interesting. Yeah, we said it. You hear it before, right? It's a Kiss world. We're just living in it. It's amazing how true that is. Sometimes it's kind of bizarre.
But you were the first person. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. But you're one of the first persons that actually mentioned the Tubes, and that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it was the same thing. Fee played all these characters on stage, and it was just such a over the top thing back then. And they were even banned from the UK, I think, for a while, just because the character was so overtly crazy and everything. So it was just that was such an interesting time for music. Everyone was doing these amazing things, and they were even if they didn't sell a lot of records, they got the spotlight. They got a share of the spotlight, and that you could say that about every band, even Kiss. They pretended they were bigger than they were, and but they actually weren't. And no one, it's a different story now. Now kind of everybody's involved and knowing exactly what an album's doing and what people are doing and what bands are successful and this and that. But back then you didn't know, and everyone got to share that spotlight. So they made the best of it by being interesting. And so it's a whole different ballpark now.
So do you use so obviously for you guys, a visual presence is huge with characters and that kind of stuff. So is that, do you promote those differently than you think a band that doesn't have types of characters would?
Yeah, probably. I'm thinking about things that they're not thinking about. Most bands are musicians, and most songs are written by guitar players, which is just riffs and everything, and some singers singing, finding a melody line within that structure of a song. I don't write that way. I write from the ground up, the song based around the vocals. So it's a whole different way of looking. And with the show, it's the same thing. I'm putting together the Midnight Things show right now, and I'm thinking of all the pieces of the puzzle, not just how we're going to play it. It's already a given. I'm going to find amazing musicians, and they're going to play the stuff. They're going to be amazing. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. But so that's already a given. I don't even think about that. I'm thinking about the production, thinking about how we're going to present this thing. I'm thinking about songs I want to play. I'm thinking a lot different than most people think. And so that's, so for me, I approach it from a different angle. So it is different. And it's not just a guitar player writing a bunch of parts and then I'm going to sing over the top. I actually write the songs from the ground up. And I also, and even when I'm writing songs, I'm thinking how they're going to work on stage, even before I finish recording them. So I'm always thinking about lots of other pieces of it than just the day-to-day stuff.
How many songs off a new album do you typically play in a show?
It's different. For the Visual Eyes, there was 9 songs on the album. We played 8.
Oh, wow.
For Appointment with Death, there was, I think, 11 or 12 songs on the album. We played 7 or 8. And for this one, I want to play them all, but it's been so long since I've done this whole thing, so I don't know. I'm going through all of that right now, and we're gonna see where it takes me. But I do plan on playing at least 7 songs off the album.
Cool.
So while you're playing these 7 songs off the album, where will you be touring to help promote the album?
Well, that's a good question. Right now, I pushed a restart button on my career because I was just touring, and it's kind of just I kept coming up with different shows, but the shows were slightly different, but the touring just remained the same. So now I'm building this whole show around this thing. So I'm not sure what territory we're going to start in because we have promoters from all over the world who are saying, let's start over here, let's start over there. So I'm actually trying to figure all that out right now, which territory I want to start in. There's obviously stronger territories than other places. Like North America is very difficult for us to tour. That's why we almost never tour here, because it's just such a hard thing it's such a big country that it becomes very expensive to be able to do it. And so in Europe, in South America, and the Asian markets, it's a lot condensed, and it's a lot easier, and they pay very well. So I'm able to put on the shows there without it, being crazy. But North America is very difficult. But I do plan on bringing the show here. It's just one of those things I haven't done. I've unfortunately neglected it because of financial reasons, but I really want to bring the Midnight Things show and do a proper tour here.
Exactly. Can you now take that show when you say you put like the concept together and you play this out? Can you also do that at a festival situation? I know that you do play some of the festivals. Can you?
Yeah,
do you have that?
The festivals are really important, and now, we've done it stripped down before, where we just flew in for one show. We've done it more than a few times. You fly across the world, you play one show for an hour, and so we've done it stripped down before with very minimal stuff, and then we've come with the full show as well. So we've done it both ways, every way you can think of, really, in the last 35 years. But for this one, I really want to bring the production, and now technology is caught up with all of that, so I'm able to do a lot of really cool production. So a lot of the things I want to do for this show, I'm going to try and make sure that I can bring it to every territory the same show.
Awesome.
What size venues are you typically playing?
Depends on where we're playing. I mean, obviously the festivals, we could be playing for 1,000 people. And then, you play theaters all across Europe. It's about theaters. Mm-hmm. That's about the level. And it's really fun. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of it goes from theaters to festivals. We play some arenas when we're packaged together. And so it varies.
Yeah. Alan and I saw Alice Cooper in a theater earlier this year, back in March. And that's the first time I'd seen him in a theater. It was a much different feel. It was really cool. It was a great show. I mean, obviously it was a great show, but just it gives you a very different and more intimate feel than the last time I saw him was when they opened for Motley Crue, and it was just an amphitheater, big facility, and you never really felt like you connected. But definitely different experience in a theater. I think it's cool. I like those venues, actually. I like them a lot better.
It is, especially when you get into like Italy and Spain and places like that, where they sing everything. They even sing the guitar lines. They sing, and it's just, I mean, it's just amazing. The enthusiasm, in the South American markets as well. They sing so much. They're so vocal while you're doing your show. It changes the structure. So if it's more intimate, it becomes such a special event. It's not just another show. It's like, okay, we're all in this together. We're creating this together. It's live action drama, and so it's a great experience. It's never the same, even though some of the elements are all the same, but it's a different experience almost every time.
That's awesome. That's very awesome.
So, Lizzy, the new album came out on Friday. Is that correct? I know started hearing it 2 weeks ago. You could get access to some of the songs, and then did it release on Friday? Is that when it actually released?
Yeah, Yeah, it came out on Friday at actually West Coast time. It was 9:00. So it was actually it was Thursday at 9:00, I think, because that would be midnight East Coast time. So technically Friday. So yeah, we're hopefully going to do really well in the first week sales.
So
get back on
for the
Billboard.
people that are listening to this, that was Friday, June the 15th, because this episode will come out next week. So
okay. Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's for 11 years.
We will pre-promote this on our Facebook page and our website and stuff. So
beautiful.
We'll help get the word out for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, it's a first album back, and I'm getting all sorts of fans in North America. Some of the ones that just followed us in the early days, some of us who followed us, all along, and so you get that different kind of perspective from different fans who only know you from whatever era. And so it's pretty unique after being, not many bands have been around for 35 years and being, and barely playing North America in the last few years. I'm trying to reintroduce myself almost. And it's kind of a weird sensation, but it's awesome to be able to put this album out and make that happen. It's been the best reviewed album I've ever had. All my albums, every one of them have been mixed reviews, and this one's at least 90% positive all around the world. So it's been pretty amazing.
Yeah, I've just listened to it the last couple of days, and I like it. I like it a lot. Sounds good.
Oh, cool.
I thought it was interesting because I remember Lizzy Borden from back in the 80s. But I don't know that I ever listened to much. And when I, when we heard about this, then I went back and I listened to the new songs that came out, and then I've listened to the new album since it came out a couple times. And I'm like, damn, I missed it. I missed something. I don't know what happened, but
and that's probably because we didn't tour that much here. After the Master of Disguise tour, we kind of abandoned. The audience got kind of older. And they only come out on the weekends, and you can't financially do a show like that. So we had to go where the younger kids were, and so we ended up going every which way. But so that's partially my fault in North America. The only people have, any one of my records was the record that they were around during that time. So to reunite everybody to this whole thing, because even this record, people think it's very far away from what I've done, and it's really not. I mean, if you listen to my two biggest records, Visualize and Master of Disguise, this could follow right in line with that. But some people only have the first couple, or they have the last couple, so it's majority has the Visualize and Master of Disguise because obviously they did the best. But it is weird to try to reconnect and unite this audience in North America in this in kind of a limited information that they know of my career, Well,
that's why we're here.
Yep.
Well, where can the audience find your website and your social media presence?
It's Real Lizzy Borden at Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So it's all the same.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome.
And I always say, it's people don't realize how much power they have in that $12 to buy that record, but they have a lot of power, and it almost ensures that we'll play in their territory. If they buy it, they actually buy it. So I always say, stream as much as you want. It's all good, but try to put down the $12 for the album, because that really changes the dynamic on where we're going to tour and how long we're going to tour.
That's the way I've always did that. As far as I use streaming to basically it's easy. But if it's a band that I really like, I go buy the product. The actual physical product, just for that reason, because you're not streaming. You're not going to support anything.
That's the problem. Is finding it sometimes is the challenge.
Well, you have to go online, or you have to find. Like I said, record stores or Best Buy don't even sell stuff anymore. I mean, you can't even get CDs at Best Buy anymore.
We've listed a lot of the mom and pop stores who are carrying the record all across the country on the websites and everything. But it is one of those things where you just people aren't used to buying records, but they really don't realize how much power they have in that $12. It means everything. So I do the same thing. I try to. It's a support for the band. Actually, it's not necessarily anything else. It's all about supporting the band and making things happen. Even our first week sales, if we get higher on Billboard, then that opens up more doors. So it's the only way that it works in this new industry that we have.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's interesting because of all the things that have changed in the music industry, Billboard still is the staple, right? That's the measuring stick of where you end up coming in on that chart. Whatever chart, whether it's a pop chart or, the rock chart or the, whatever. That's really interesting that has maintained its status, I guess.
Yeah. And it trickles down to promoters. You wouldn't think that there would be a connection there, but promoters will look at, and if you're top 40, of the top 200 bands in the whole country, they double their price. So they're able to pay you a lot more if they see that. And that's kind of the way it's always been, but it's even more so now because no one buys records anymore. So when you see the commitment from fans who actually bought the record, then the promoters come alive and say, okay, well, this band is worth a lot more than I was thinking. So now, because I see them higher on the charts. So that's why I say the fans don't realize how much power they have in putting that $12 down.
Interesting.
Cool.
Interesting.
And we have packages now too, which is the first time I've ever had it in my career. So there's colored vinyl, which is really amazing.
I was going to ask if you had it in vinyl because that's what I'm buying now is vinyl.
Yeah,
back again,
a lot of people
I did back in the 80s or 70s.
Yeah. It all circled back around, but this time the vinyl is really it's all colored and it's cool. You can get it in black too as well, but and then it comes with a CD, the digital, a T-shirt, all that stuff, which is pretty cool. Like I said, none of my records had these packages, so this is the first one for me. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. So Lizzy, so the new album is called My Midnight Things, and you can find it on all of the major outlets, correct?
Yes, it's all Amazon and iTunes, and it's actually, if you just want to go right to Metal Blade, it's metalblade.com/Lizzy Borden. It'll take you right to the packages.
Great.
Cool. I saw them earlier. I was searching.
That's cool.
Cool. Man, it's been great having you on. Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it.
It was great talking to you guys.
Yeah,
right,
hang up.
I'm going to take us out of here, but hang on for a second. We'd like to get a bumper from you if you don't mind.
Okay.
All right. Visit us on agesofrock.com. Check us out on Twitter, Instagram, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, and all of that fun stuff. And until next week, peace out. Thanks for listening to the Ages of Rock podcast. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and most importantly, tell all your friends. Remember, you're never too old to rock. Until the next episode, peace out, folks.